Harare Post had an interview with former chairperson and lecturer of Media and Society Studies at Midlands State University, Professor Nhamo Mhiripiri, on the United States elections and other important political issues.
We recently witnessed the elections in the United States of America, and there are several issues that are of particular interest, especially when we compare similar elections held in the global south, particularly in Africa or even in our own country, Zimbabwe, and what prevails in the United States of America, which most people consider as one of the most advanced countries in the world. And they would expect that its institutions and its democratic cultures are much more complex and sophisticated, but at the same time more open and inclusive. And once you consider these factors, these differences of the different terrains with the suppositions, the imagined realities, I'm saying imagined deliberately because what usually is imagined and people's perceptions might differ from the actual realities or imperatives that are on the ground, what is actually taking place. We find that quite often the global south, particularly Zimbabwe, are accused of being authoritarian, where some forms of dictatorship take place and there is no open space for democratic participation, especially pertaining to freedom to make your political choices freely, to choose your own leaders through elections, of course, and media freedoms, to say do they have the right to express themselves and to publish and broadcast that which is important. Freedom of association, freedom of movement, and so on. We are talking about the fundamental human rights that should be enjoyed by a citizen, because citizenship is about the full enjoyment of the diverse rights that we have. And if you are excluded in any one area pertaining to those rights, you then lack the acceptable, expected citizenship. One case in point is, would you allow a president with a criminal case pending in the courts to contest for elections? In Africa, perhaps we would have barred that person and said there are these allegations, very serious ones, some of them which are constitutional and others which might actually appear as treason. When you break through the White House, an equivalent of the State House, and you trash the State House, pull things down, smash things, you are rowdy, and it's there before the glare of the international cameras, and it's swept under the carpet because you're saying it's in the name of democracy. When you are convicted for malfeasances such as participating in corrupt deals and judgment is reserved, like the current case with Trump, where the courts decided, yes, he is guilty, and he bemoaned, he complained about that ruling, but he's still going to be president, he's going to be inaugurated. So these contradictions, structural problems, if they were taking place in Africa, the condemnation would have been consistent and brutal. But in America, it's business as usual. You sanitize it. It might look like it's some movie from the Wild West. We grew up on Western movies and these things are acceptable. The strongest, the winner takes all. So we are seeing the same script, the same narrative coming out, where you justify even looting to say the strongest, the best gunslinger can take it all. So you normalize that. And They are literate now amongst us, those who should be in struggles of a better consciousness, struggles for decolonizing the mind. Those who are literate will not see through the veil. They operate on the surface, especially when they are constantly bombarded with new information, and they celebrate social media because they say we get everything. But what narratives are coming packaged in big blocks? And perhaps these are the alternative voices, such as the ones that come from the global south, especially Zimbabwe, become overwhelmed, but they still are persistent and resilient to articulate the interests of those that have been historically downtrodden, who still need to strike better deals today, because the pricing of our commodities is still skewed in favor of the global north, the developed countries. If you try to resist or you impose your will to say this is how I value what I'm giving you, there are certain things that can befall you. There's a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you consider that, you read that, you'll see how even those in the global north, the reasons for why the author wrote that, he was saying he's doing it for posterity, to protect his own descendants, because he knows the bitterness amongst the majority of the world, the oppressed, can result in an eruption that can destroy his own descendants who grew up privileged. That's the reason. The norms and values of why he had to make that confessions are based on a kind of self-preservation. And we are saying here now, if it can come from the horse's mouth, that this is what we do, we vilify, we demonize as a first level. It could be the second level. The first one is to corrupt. You wine and dine and so on, and you are given riches in the global south, and you are then absorbed into the system, the dominant system. If you resist that, those trinkets, there is the demonization. If you resist, it can go to the extremes of assassination and murder. So we are saying, if such confessions have been made, and we know that they are based on the price of oil, the price of gold, the raw materials, if you say you want to add your value to these commodities, it's not supported because you are already trying to extract certain revenues that were traditionally going to the developed countries, and we don't want to lose that. So we have to go back to the basics, the economics, and the consciousness of our people, to say what exactly are we doing. And when these elections take place in America, it's not like we are trying to score points to say, look, they are as bad as us. We want to develop at the same time and to achieve a higher civilization for global humanity, protecting even environments. Some of our problems now are about climate change. Is the government that is coming going to be dedicated to interventions that ameliorate climate change? Find that we have strategies in place that are well funded. But if pollution that leads to climate change is coming from the corporations, pollutions of the waterways, of the air, and so on, will they be willing to take responsibility and pay? We are worried that the Trump government might backtrack on that one, but we really want it to be responsive, to be revolutionary, and to also have the better interests of all humanity, so that he also understands that there are different cultures, those that are fighting for the preservations of their forests, for instance, in South America, should be heard, not only to give spaces for saying things reserved for those who are rich, who want to go and cut down trees, extract oil, pollute the soils, and so on. So there is a higher consciousness that we are aspiring for, and that higher consciousness should also take cognizance of the differences in humanity, that all cultures are equal and are worth recognizing, and all human beings need to live with dignity. I would say at a philosophical level, someone who comes and gives the peasants and the workers and the lumpen proletariats, those who are unemployed, the sex workers, the petty thieves, because big thieves will not be caught on camera unless it's a big international scandal. But otherwise, you don't get big thieves captured on camera to say they were lining up or queuing for sugar and so on. They do it elsewhere, secretly. So, vote buying is there. But when it is done by countries that are economically weak, that vilification, if the candidate who does that, who gives hands over to the people, is not the one that is preferred or favored by the dominant system, the global dominant system, they are vilified and they become an example of why things do not work in that country. But you are looking at a minor issue as compared to the bigger structural issues that I've referred to earlier, to say, what are our pricing systems for the major raw materials? For instance, right now, we are the largest producers of lithium. We've got gold, platinum, and other commodities. The DRC is constantly at war, mainly because of the economic or the mineral resources that they have. Where are the allocations, parceling out of deals of, the wealth done? And what are the assurances that are given to African populations or African leaders to say, if you vote for so and so, who probably is in support of certain companies coming to extract at a lower price and cheaply from the continent? So that vote buying, for me, yes, it sensationalizes things when you are talking about the poor and down and out and how they get these nearly seasonal favors. I'm talking about electoral seasons where we see our own politicians going to meet the people, and they do that. Is it uncouth? Is it unrefined as compared to the people that do that in air-ventilated offices, splash sofas or seats and hard oak tables with briefcases there? Some of the money is paid in hard cash, others transferred electronically. Do we investigate these people and say, they are also vote buying? Or we are now saying it's much more sensational if we say the poor were given this, therefore they had no way of thinking or reflecting. What are their interests as compared to the interests of the affluent, of the rich and powerful? Is we overrate America to the extent that we are also belittling and disempowering the organs that should be responsible for oversight over elections and other excesses that can take place in various nation states. I know we have got the concept of sovereignty to say there should not be any interference in the sovereign affairs of a nation. You are independent. But if you are seen to be grossly violating human rights, there is need for the justification of interference, including intervention, physical, military intervention. But that should be left to the rightful organs, and I'm here talking about the United Nations, not the Security Council. That's why we are talking about the revision of the Security Council. There should be a consensus in the General Assembly. Until the Security Council has legitimacy, especially amongst the Global South, where we are saying there is adequate representation, permanent representation with the veto powers not only reserved for a selected few countries. Because remember, even when we have these impermanent representations from Africa, they don't have the veto power in the Security Council. We can, at any time, we have a representative in the Security Council. And these have also at times lobbied to have certain actions taken or not taken against Africa. The last said one was when we had the invasion in Libya, which led to the violent removal of Muammar Gaddafi. And Libya right now is trying to rebuild, but against a lot of odds. So we are saying, let's not overrate the United States of America. Let's start that discussion which is not based on our literacy. A discussion that is well informed, and we know our structures, and we then say, where does the United States of America get the responsibility to become the policeman of the world? The self-ascribed or self-given position or status of the United States of America should be questioned. And if we've got a better alternative where we have all nations participate in reaching decisions in a democratic manner, that is the ideal that we want. To go back and rethink, unbundle the United Nations if necessary, restructure it, start afresh. But that can only happen if we pool resources and give resources to the United Nations and its organs. Because most of these even have been subverted by the United States of America, especially when the organs are not in favor of their interests. You think of UNESCO. America condemned it as a socialist gathering, and they pulled out. And they've done it even in the areas of climate change. They come in, they are not consistent. You have got organs that are in charge of climate change. So we are saying, if we put too much responsibility on the shoulders of the United States of America, they have reason to abuse that. Let's restructure with our resources. We have seen the emergence of different groupings, G5, now expanding to G whatever. Can these lead us to a proper global solidarity that can lead to the resolution of some of these problems that we have identified and we keep on talking about since the days of Nkrumah, Nehru in India, and so on. So let's not speak like a stuck vinyl record. We have the critical analysis of what has been an obstacle to a harmonious global development that respects every nation and all peoples. How then do we remove the contradictions as well as the conflicts that take place between nations and within nations? If we address these and then say, which are our dispute resolution platforms and what authority do we accord them, legal as well as moral authority? Right now, because of that hierarchy of being that I was referring to, the Americans will say we are the most developed. We are the most civilized. Look, you even follow our culture, you copy our Hollywood and everything that we produce. Therefore, they self-justify themselves and say, if you are copying us, aren't we the best that humanity has ever produced as a system, as a people? We are Americans. So their narrative becomes dominant.
For more topical issues, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Harare Post.